I'm sorry if you hear music in the background. It's my neighbors. They are having a little block party like they do every single day. And if I don't record now, this video will not be up in time. So, sorry if you hear it. Anyway, this is going to be my review of the 1999 book, Battle Royale, and the 2000 movie, also called Battle Royale. The plot of Battle Royale is fairly simplistic. It takes place in an alternate timeline where Japan is a member of this totalitarian state called the Republic of Greater East Asia. And every year, a group of students from a junior high school is chosen to go to some location to kill each other in an event called the program. And officially, this program is a military research project, but it really is a way of maintaining control of the population by terrorizing them, and also creating a sense of paranoia between people so that no sort of rebellions can form. And so in the book we get a class of students who are taken on a field trip and end up gassed on this island where they are forced to kill each other. And the rules are as such. There are these collars that are attached to their necks, and if they try to take these collars off, they will explode. And they are also used to locate the people where they are on the island to make sure they don't go off, because if you try to escape the island, it will blow up and you will die. It also regulates your heart to see if you actually have been killed, so they can make announcements about who has died during these interms where they're announcing the deaths. And so that way they can track who's surviving. And they have 3 days to do this. Everyone is given a pack, and it contains water, I believe some food if I remember correctly, and a weapon. And not all these weapons are useful. Some people get guns, some people get sickles, but some people get like paper fans or a garbage lid. Some people get like in the movie someone gets like a tracking device. So it really ranges upon who gets these weapons and how useful they are. But they have 3 days, and they have to kill each other. There are no ifs, ands, or buts, because only one person can leave. And so the thing about it is that in this situation, these are classmates. I mean, these are people who have grown up together, who are friends, and now they're forced to kill each other. And it really is a kill or be killed. And the thing on top of it is, if no one dies every day, they all get killed. If a winner has not been chosen after the 3-day time limit, they will all be killed. So it's not even as if, oh, we can hold out and maybe we'll survive. If you guys don't do this, because since they can monitor you and they can't do it, you're going to die. And so that all on top of it creates this kind of air of paranoia. There are people who want to do the right thing, who want to try and survive this, but there's also this fear there's also the other group of people who, you know, even though they may care for some other people, they want to live, and they are willing to turn their backs on the people that they cared about in this school in order to try and survive. It's very Lord of the Flies in that instance. It really goes into like humanity and what it would do in that kind of situation. It's like, if you had the choice of you living or kill your best friend, would you? And I think that's really what this novel deals with. And I think that it works really well for a few reasons. I think the whole idea of the program works really well, considering that in Japan at the time, there was a level of juvenile delinquency. And I think it ties in better with the movie than it does with the book, but it helps to give a lot of understanding about why they would target young people, why they would try to keep them down, because in that time the young people in Japan were the ones who were really being rebellious and going against the kind of classical ways that they were being brought up. And so that, I think, reflects really well in the novel and how they deal with all the characters. Personally, I really enjoyed this book, and I was so happy that people pointing out to me, like when I first started talking about the Hunger Games and reviewing that, everyone was like, you have to read Battle Royale. And I was like, okay, because everyone was comparing it. But I think to compare the two is a disservice to both, because I think Battle Royale really deals with it in a more, I guess, a grittier, more realistic way. I find the way that this is handled to be much more practical I can see why this would work, even though you have to suspend disbelief in both situations. This to me makes more sense than how they handled this kind of situation in the Hunger Games. I think the way the Hunger Games handles it, and I'll explain it in my next video, which will be talking about it, really doesn't make much sense. But this does, especially with the situation that they put these kids in. And think about it, because it's chosen at random, there is no prejudice. You know what I mean? It's not, you can't get out of it depending on who your family is, who you like. It's completely random. So even if you can be like the poorest kid or the rich kid in class, it's nothing. So it's free of that kind of prejudice of like, oh, you can get out of it. You can't. You are chosen if you're in that class, or you're not chosen if you're in that class, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And the book deals with a bunch of characters. We get perspectives of a couple of different people, because I believe the class is made up of, 42 students who are put in this situation, and they're 21 boys and 21 girls. And so there are villains, and then there are protagonists. The protagonists are Shoya, Noriko, and Shoujo, and they are trying to work together to try and make it as far as they can. And Shoya is kind of the really opposite. He doesn't want to do this. He keeps trying to like help people. He keeps trying to like make them stop fighting, but everything kind of crumbles around him because he just cannot. He's trying to be the noble person in a completely insane environment, because people are just going to their instincts and just trying to survive. And there's one situation that happens later on during a scene with a group of girls that just really shows you, I think both in the book and in the film, just how dark the situation is and how it turns these people against each other, because everyone is a suspect and everyone could have an agenda, and you really do not know when it comes down to it who's gonna have your back and who doesn't. The antagonist is Kiriyama, and his character is really interesting. There are technically two antagonists, I would agree, because it's him, he's kind of like the male antagonist, and then there's the other one, it's Mitsuko. She is definitely, like, her character, I can see why people find her interesting. Like, she's really just dark and perverse, and you get more into the characters and their backgrounds in the novel, because the novel is like 607 pages, 607 pages, and therefore it has to kind of go into the mindset of Kiriyama and explain why he is the way he is, to Michiko, and go into why she is the way she is. And so you feel for them. While there are definitely people you root for, and there's a protagonist and an antagonist, it's not completely black and white, because if the situation had been, not in this, would they really be in those corners? There are some people who would still be assholes, yeah, but it's not saying that they would instinctively kill each other. That kind of changes in the film. Now, that being said, I love the film. I think it really captures the movie really well. I got the special edition that has like the director's cut and the theatrical cut, because I just thought that was awesome. Yeah, let's go. Fucking intense. Look at that. Yup. It just be tripping. Because it's a film, it doesn't have enough time to go into the background of every single character, and therefore I feel like some of them were made, like Kiriyama, his background, his motivation, the explanation of why he is the way he is completely ignored and put aside. So he's not as developed as he is in the book, and it's hard for me to really see how bad I think it is. There are a few things that are changed. For example, 2 students are made to be transfers instead of 1. You don't get as much development between people. It's like minor things. I don't think it's a really good adaptation of the film for what it's a really good adaptation of the book for what it is as a film. But it just doesn't have the time to go into depth the way that the book does. And the acting is something that you can kind of give or take. I feel like the youth of the actors, because they all are the age roughly of the people that they are playing, and because of that, everything seems a little bit more raw. Is it professional? Well, to be honest, to a certain degree, I probably wouldn't be the best judge of it, because I don't watch a lot of live action Japanese cinema, so it's kind of hard for me to always judge those kind of things. There are some scenes that look very campy or very intense, but at the same time, the grit of it also intrigues me because it looks genuine when they're scared, when they're confused, because they're so young and they look it, and because they are, it seems more realistic to me. And I think what flaws may happen with the acting are made up for in just how the story is told. So I enjoy the film. I think the film, while it does cheapen up some characters, it manages to make everything kind of work together. And I really feel like you should check out Battle Royale. I know people compare it to the Hunger Games. I really don't want to get into that because I feel like either way people are going to have their opinion about it. I feel like there are definitely strong similarities between the two. I feel like Battle Royale handles the content better, more realistically, and I feel like what's good about it is different from what's good about the first Hunger Games. But I feel like if I had to choose between two, I'd choose Battle Royale. I think like it is to me a superior book because of how it handles the situation, because of how dark it's willing to get. Because it's not written for a certain crowd. It's a grown-up book. Grown-up book, what does that even mean? It's something that would be given to adults. But I feel like I don't see why it couldn't be YA besides a few like adult discretionary things, because it doesn't have those limitations because of the genre and because of the point of view. You get more out of it than I think you get from other things that try to deal with it. Is it perfect? No. Sometimes the writing is really simplistic, but I feel like it gets the job done. When you read this book, you are getting into the experience. And I did care for the protagonist. I cared for the antagonist too. As the numbers dwindled down, it got more and more intense. And one of the things I can say that was really great about this is I showed this at Film Society at my school, and all my friends got into it. I mean, even though we watched it in Japanese with subtitles, everyone people were dying, they would get intense, they would just get nervous, they would get caught up in like who's gonna die, the paranoia. I think that even them who didn't have the background of the books could still get into it and get drawn into the film. It really shows how good this is at doing what it does. And it's not as heartwarming or as hopeful as the Hunger Games is. It doesn't leave you with an idea that everything's going to be okay and everything's going to be good. It doesn't do that. And I think that's also why I like it more, is because it really does show the hopelessness that can exist in those kind of situations. And I think, considering the subject matter, that's important. And so I really liked Battle Royale. I know people are going to ask me who my favorite characters are. I really, overall, I cared for most of them. I think if I had to choose a favorite character, it would probably be, let me see if I can find her. Noriko was sort of okay. It really depended. Mitsuko, even though she's crazy and she's hardcore and really wicked, her character intrigued me. Like, every time I got her POV or she did something, I was like, this is my crazy bitch right here. Shinji is pretty interesting. I liked him, but let me get to my girl. Where the hell is she? Oh yeah, Takako. That's my home bitch, because she, first of all, it's Go-Go from Kill Bill, holla back, that's my girl. But she was my favorite. Just from when she appears to when shit happens, she was busting everyone's ass. I love her. The one big flaw I would say that exists in Battle Royale is that the characters are kind of static. Because of the nature of the plot and the story, it's not really meant for them to develop into different people. It's really meant to see how they are dealing with the situation. It's not about them growing up or becoming better, with the exception of maybe the two main protagonists and the other third protagonist. If anyone grows and evolves, it's probably them more than anything. But at the same time, they're not really there to be dynamic. It's about the plot. It's a plot-driven story. It's not character-driven. So even though you do get insight into these characters and see how they handle the situations, it's not about them growing. It's just about how they handle the situation, how they deal with all the events coming through. And so I feel like if you really want character growth and development, that's probably going to be the one weakness that you're really going to be bothered with Battle Royale. Like, I feel like if you compare that and HG, that's probably the big difference. One is really character driven for the most part because of the POV, where this one is mainly just plot driven. But I think that despite that, it doesn't make the book less enjoyable. It's just something you're aware of. It's like you don't have time to develop all of this because you're just killing people in 3 days. You know, how much are you gonna do? So, and just the way her story is, like, it's a small story, but for what it does, it's just so good. So yeah, I highly recommend Battle Royale. I think that if you've been interested and wanted to check it out, definitely do it. It is worth the time.